The Lord has been speaking to Israel in the last 2 chapters through Amos, but now the style of prophecy changes. The Lord shows Amos things in a vision and then explains their significance in terms of what he is about to do. The 2 chapters build towards the final climactic judgment oracle in chapter 9. In the middle of our passage, breaking up the sequence of visions shown to Amos, there is a confrontation with the priest Amaziah, who rejects the word of the Lord. Chapter 7 begins with 3 visions introduced with the sentence, "This is what the Lord showed me." Amos is permitted to see an imminent punishment the Lord is about to inflict. We might expect Amos to be passive here, as he has already been prophesying judgment, but instead he intercedes for Jacob, who, despite their own self-estimation, is so small. Twice the Lord relents, but the 3rd time the Lord does not show him a judgment in process against which Amos can protest. Instead, he shows him an object and asks Amos what it is. Then he declares what will certainly happen. Scholars debate what this object is. If it is a plumb line, then it might mean the Lord is evaluating Israel. The Lord addresses Amos by name. This is a very special relationship, showing that God has taken this man into his confidence. It will make Amaziah's rejection of him all the more serious. The judgment, as verse 9 reveals, is against the high places of Isaac, the sanctuaries of Israel, and the house of Jeroboam. The reference to Isaac likely means Beersheba, with which he was associated. Taken together, the judgment is on the northern kingdom of Israel for its continual idolatry. No mention is made yet of the social abuses involved. The judgment oracles pause for a moment for a confrontation with Amaziah, the priest at Bethel. This was, as Amaziah declares in verse 13, the king's sanctuary, which means it was where the king came to participate in rituals and sacrifices. The king Jeroboam II belonged to the dynasty of Jehu, which we will read about in 2 Kings. Jehu seized power at the instigation of the prophet Elisha, so Amaziah knows full well that prophetic doom rumbling can have far-reaching effects. This is why he reports Amos's words to Jeroboam. Amaziah tells Amos to flee to Judah, probably hinting at the trouble he has caused by his report to the king. He tells him to earn his bread there. We saw with Saul in 1 Samuel 9 how they needed a gift for the prophet who was to tell them where their donkeys went. Amaziah dismisses Amos as a prophet for hire, thus dismissing his message. But Amos is different. He is not a professional prophet. He does other things for a living, as he mentions in verse 14, and indeed was probably doing very well out of it. But, as he says in verse 15, the Lord pulled him out of his normal life and sent him to Israel. Precisely because Amos is not one of the prophetic guild, precisely because the Lord plucked a normal man out of his normal life and gave him a special commission to prophesy, his message was all the more crucial to absorb. This denial of Amos's serves as a preface to a ringing judgment on Amaziah. His family will be destroyed, but he will linger and die in an unclean land, and Israel will be exiled. With chapter 8, the judgment visions resume. We have now the familiar sentence, now used for the 4th time. This is what the Lord showed me. Now the symbol is a basket of summer fruit, which in Hebrew is kayitz. The Lord explains, the end has come for my people Israel. The word for end is kates, which is almost spelt the same and sounds very similar. Thus a basket of summer fruit, perhaps figs and pomegranates, though normally representing a happy harvest yield, now represent doom, but not a threatened doom, a coming one. The imagery of transformation continues. Joyful songs in the temple will become wailing. Dead bodies will be everywhere, defiling everything, with no one to bury them. Verses 4 to 6 return to the specifics of Israel's guilt. The needy are trampled on and the poor ruined. This oracle is directed to those who do this. They are good at celebrating special days, but their hearts are not in it. Instead, they are impatient to return to their crooked business. They make the measurement ephah smaller than it should be, so they give less, and they increase the size of the weight so that they get paid more. Thus they cheat both ways. In verse 7, the Lord swears by himself that he will not forget these deeds. In judgment, more transformations. The day will become night, feasting will become mourning, songs will become laments. Finally, in verses 11 to 14, which close out the chapter, a unique punishment is declared. This is the famine of the words of the Lord. What does it mean? The later rabbis thought it meant Torah, but given the immediate context, it likely means prophecy. That is, God will no longer respond to them and guide them. The final 3 verses paint a vivid portrait of long wandering journeys, seeking and never finding, and collapsing of thirst. Those who listen to the gods of Samaria will have only them to listen to, and so they will fall and never rise again.